Hi, I'm Susan Kuznitsky and welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to do a short demo on how I would approach a plein air painting. I want to briefly show you my plein air setup. What I have here is a Sienna plein air tripod. It's very stable and sturdy, which is really what you want when you're out in the elements so you don't go blowing over. Attached to that with the quick release is the Sienna plein air panel holder, where I can very easily insert my board with my paper, very stable and secure. And last of all, I take my Sienna plein air pastel box and I hook it on here. It's very sturdy, also very stable. Open up the little latch and open up the doors, and there you go. I'm ready to paint out in nature. Even though I'm in my studio, this is what I would do if I were outside, and my subject matter for today is this beautiful bouquet of purple asters in the sun with some dappled light. So I'm using Lux Archival sanded paper. This is a 6x9 size that I have cut. And the first thing I do is I'm drawing out the big overall shape of my composition. And I'm looking at the negative shapes, meaning the shapes around the flowers and the leaves and around the pot. I'm trying to see where I want to have the railing to sit that the pot is sitting on. And just really quickly, there's not a lot of drawing involved at this point for this kind of subject matter. The next thing I do is I'm going to pick up my hard or soft pastels and I'm going to start to lay in flat areas of color. Again, looking at big shapes. This is the darker part of the greens. I'm going to pick up a really dark color. It's actually like a chocolate brown, but it's going to probably look almost black. And I'm looking at the negative shapes here. So I'm just laying in big shapes. And I have another color I pulled out for the shadow, the cast shadow. Now with pastels, you're going to layer up color. So I'm picking a darker overall local color. So now I'm going to pick up a lighter green to indicate the big shape of the light flowers, leaves. And my goal here is to just get a layer of pastel all over my white paper. This is the color I picked for the darker purple flowers. Again, I'm looking in bunches. I'm not looking at individual flowers. I'm just looking in big bunches, masses. So it almost is going to look like an abstract painting, but you can kind of see the form of what I'm going to be doing. Right? Okay, so then the next step is I take my synthetic wash brush and I'm using No Odor Nude Artist Paint Thinner as my solvent. And I start with the lighter colors, and you don't need a lot. Just to moisten the pastel, it turns it into a pigment. You can see it's paint. It's moving around like a paint. So I just go color by color, so I don't want to get the solvent all dirtied up. And this will dry really fast, but it's going to takes a couple minutes to dry. This is a very, very user-friendly technique. There is lots of room for changing and fixing anything that might need it. The last thing I'm going to do is the background, because that's my darkest color. And everything gets really dark when the liquid comes on it, and then it'll dry a little bit lighter. Now that my underpainting has dried, you can see it dried a little bit lighter, I came back in with my charcoal pencil. I just sort of redraw a little bit to just make sure I know where everything sits, because when you do the underpainting, oftentimes you lose some of the drawing. Again, if I'm doing a studio painting, I take much more time, but I'm kind of pretending like this is a plein air painting, because you have to work super fast outside, because the light changes instantly almost. I'm taking the dark colors that I initially put in. This is more of a purpley dark color with that dark charcoal chocolatey color. And I'm re-establishing my dark pattern around the flowers. This is a soft pastel. Primarily I'm using a Sennelier soft pastels and some Cretacolor hard pastels. And you can see on my page the exact sets that I recommend. So, okay, now I'm really just re-establishing my light pattern of the greenery, of the leaf, the foliage. And I'm going to do the same thing now with the shadowy colors for the flowers. I see like a deeper purpley, beautiful colors in here. Just amazing. So I'm just sort of still looking in bigger clumps, still not getting like little, you know, the eye of the flower or anything. I'm still looking at the overall big shapes, but now I'll start to carve it out a little stronger. And this is going to be more of like more of an impressionistic style painting, not a super detailed painting. So I keep kind of carving in where I want background to show. And I'm going to pick up a darker green now and really hit the darkest greens that are tucked up under. Start to give it some form. So that's going to be the bright sunlight hitting the top of that deck. And if I put too much pastel in an area, like I want to leave some room for that dappled light that's cast shadow on there, I can brush off the light and reestablish a dark. You don't want to put dark colors right on top of light colors because it will get muddy. So you always want to have a little scrubby brush handy to erase, so to speak, any too much pastel or the wrong value. So I want to see my light pattern. I'm going to pull out one of my lighter pinkish purples, start to dabble on where I want the lightest flowers to be. And again, I'm not picking up the absolute lightest color first because pastels is a layering process. So I use the phrase I like to use is kind of layer up to the light. Don't start out with your first light, because that's the beauty of pastels. So once I have that pink on there, I can start to put in some of the lighter lights that I see on top of that second layer of pastel. So looking for some not so bright tones. I don't want the whole thing to scream heavy chroma, meaning I don't want all the light to be high energy chroma, intense color. So this is more of a grayish green to balance it. And then again, as I layer up the colors on top, there's some warmer tones. They're going to come next. You can see how it's starting to create a flow. So you can orchestrate the light as you want it. And again, if you're painting outside and you want to capture that beautiful, beautiful shape of light, then you have to do it very quickly, because that shape of light, that shadow that's down there, that's going to move really, really fast. And that is the challenge of the fun and the challenge of plein air painting. So I want to lighten this front of the railing. I want to kind of strengthen the sunlight that's hitting the dappled light here. All right, so I can start to see it taking some form. I'm going to get some of the pretty lights, lightest lights up here. And this is where the really Sennelier really soft pastels, you'll see the pigment it's like butter. It's just so beautiful, and you can get so expressive with your mark making. You can see I'm turning my arm and my hand to get different kinds of marks on here. And now I'm going to start to even put in a little bit of where I want the little centers of the flowers. I'm kind of just going to create a pattern that I like from what I see there. Of course, not going to get every single flower, but enough to make it feel like a full bouquet. All right, so I've worked on this a little off camera for about 20 minutes or so, and now I'm going to kind of jump to how I would finish it. So this is the really fun part, because you take the very soft pastels and you just press and twist, and you can get just beautiful chunky texture on your painting. So this has to come up at the end. This is like the sprinkles on the icing on the cake. I'm going to just strengthen some of my darks, just always looking for this flow, and I want to try and connect my darks as much as possible, because I can see in my photo a nice flow of wavy kind of areas of dark and then some beautiful light. And that's what you're going to look for when you're outside painting. You want to look for that pattern and the flow. Okay, so I'm going to take another dark purple to add into the green that I already have back here. If I made it all one color, it would be a little flat and boring. But I can mix up the color while keeping the values the same. And another good set that I use a lot of Sennelier has a set of just the very darkest colors, and I would highly suggest that you get that set, because that enables you to stay in the same value range and make dark purple, dark blue, dark green. It makes it much more interesting. And I can see in here a little bit of peek through, a little bit, not too much. It's pretty bushy and full. And the last thing I do, this is where I come back with my pencils and I start to soften some of the edges. It's great for that. I just kind of stick it on there and push it up, and it makes some movement, and it makes a nice soft shadow, edged into the shadow, sorry. So here I do it with a pink pencil on top of these flowers. And then also, and I don't spend a lot of time on this, if I take a hard pastel, I can see a little bit of the stalks, the stems. Not too much. I don't need to get every single one, just a little bit. These are really the ending things that you can do. So now I'm carving out littler shapes. You know, in the beginning I carved out the big shapes. Now I can come in and work inside those shapes. So my, quote, jigsaw puzzle gets smaller, pieces get smaller. So that's how I like to think about it. Big chunky jigsaw puzzle pieces, and then we get into the littler pieces. And I can pick up a very dark, another one of these dark colors, just to indicate some of the little middle of the flowers. Some of them are facing out, some of them are facing down. And I think another thing I want to finish up down here. So again, if it's too much, anytime you get too much, you just brush it away. If you don't like where you put something, or you get too much pastel, this is a sanded paper, as I said earlier. Lux Archival is what I like the best, and it's a 400 grit, which means it's a medium grit, and it will hold many layers of pastel, but at some point you can fill it up too much, and you can tell when that happens because it'll just kind of get slippery on you. And that's where you would take a little scrub brush and brush it down and rework it if you need to. So again, it's a very, very wonderful medium for learning, for beginners, for all levels. And the last little bits would be the next level up of light. So I'll say it again, you want to work up to your lights. You don't want to start out with your lightest color. It's a process of building up. All right, so I'm going to say this is about as good as I want it to be, as much detail as I feel like I want it. A little bit of cool pencil, like a blue one here. It's more in the shadow. I want to just soften this edge. So call lost and found edges. You want to have some crisp edges and then some lost edges. And I can see that I don't like this straight. There's kind of a straight edge there, which is bothering me. So I'm going to cut in with some background color here and kind of break that up, maybe add a flower. That's the kind of things you want to look for. Is it flowing? Is there straight lines where there shouldn't be? There we go. Nice chunky part there. Pop it out a little bit. All right, and then the last thing I could do is sign it. And that's where I also use my pastel pencils. They're wonderful for that. And there we go.